The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. But what happens when something defies every sensor, every theory, every rational explanation? When the impossible doesn't just knock on your door but tears through the fabric of space itself, demanding to be acknowledged? Captain James T. Kirk had faced gods and monsters across 100 worlds, but nothing could prepare him for the woman who would challenge everything he believed about duty, justice, and the price of peace. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The Enterprise bridge hummed with its usual efficiency, a symphony of beeps and status reports that Kirk had long ago learned to interpret like a conductor reading sheet music. They were 3 days into a routine survey mission along the Romulan neutral zone, routine being a relative term when dealing with a border that separated the Federation from an empire built on secrets and paranoia. Captain. Spock's voice cut through the ambient noise with characteristic precision. Sensors are detecting a subspace anomaly bearing 093 Mark IV. Configuration is irregular. Kirk leaned forward in his command chair, already knowing that when his Vulcan science officer used the word irregular, it meant something genuinely unprecedented. On screen, the view screen shimmered, replacing the star field with a roiling mass of energy that seemed to fold in on itself, colors that shouldn't exist bleeding into each other like oil on water. It pulsed with a rhythm almost organic, breathing in the vacuum of space. Analysis, Mr. Spock? The Vulcan's fingers danced across his station controls, eyebrows climbing incrementally higher, a gesture that, on anyone else, would have been dramatic astonishment. Fascinating. The anomaly appears to be a dimensional rift, Captain. However, its energy signature doesn't match any natural phenomenon in our database. There are elements that read as temporal displacement, spatial folding, and something else entirely. Something that our sensors are interpreting as impossible. Impossible how? McCoy's voice carried from his position near the turbolift, the doctor's instinct for trouble already bringing him to the bridge. Impossible as in the energy readings suggest a reality interface, Doctor. 2 universes attempting to occupy the same space. Kirk stood, straightening his gold tunic. Red alert. Shields up. Uhura, open hailing frequencies on all. The rift exploded. There was no other word for it. One moment it was contained, pulsing gently in the darkness. The next, it erupted outward in a cascade of brilliant white light that overloaded the view screen and sent the Enterprise rocking violently to port. Kirk grabbed the arm of his chair as the deck tilted beneath him, the artificial gravity struggling to compensate. Damage report. Shields holding at 73%. Sulu called out, hands flying across the helm controls to stabilize their position. Hull integrity intact. No casualties reported. Captain. Chekhov's young voice cracked slightly with excitement. There's something coming through the rift. The view screen flickered back to life. Against the dying energy of the anomaly, a figure emerged, human in silhouette, but moving with a grace that seemed to defy inertia itself. She flew, there was no other word for it, propelled by no visible means through the void of space. Dark hair whipped around a face of classical beauty, and she wore armor that gleamed red, blue, and gold even in the harsh light of the dying rift. She's flying in open space without a suit, McCoy breathed. That's impossible. So I have been informed, Doctor, Spock replied dryly. Yet the evidence suggests otherwise. The woman's trajectory carried her directly toward the Enterprise. Kirk's mind raced through options. Hostile? Lost? In distress? Her body language suggested none of these. She moved with purpose and control, a warrior's economy of motion even in zero gravity. Tractor beam, Mr. Sulu. Bring her aboard gently. Transport a room. Prepare for emergency beam out directly to sickbay. Security team to sickbay immediately. Aye, Captain. The ship's tractor beam reached out, invisible fingers of manipulated gravity grasping the flying woman. For a moment she resisted, and the Enterprise's engines actually strained against the force of her opposition. Then she seemed to understand, ceased her resistance, and allowed herself to be drawn toward the ship. Transporter room, energize. The familiar whine of the transporter filled the bridge audio feed. Kirk was already moving toward the turbolift. Spock, you have the con. Doctor, with me. Mr. Sulu, maintain position and keep those sensors on that rift. I want to know if anything else is coming through. The turbolift seemed to take forever. McCoy stood beside Kirk, medical scanner already in hand, his weathered face creased with concern. Jim, our sensors couldn't detect a life support field around her. If she was really in vacuum, then we're about to meet someone who rewrites the rules, Bones. Wouldn't be the first time. The turbolift doors opened to controlled chaos. Security personnel had formed a perimeter around the biobed where the woman lay, phasers drawn but not aimed. Kirk approved, cautious but not overtly hostile. The woman herself sat upright on the bed, very much conscious and very much alert. Her eyes, impossibly blue, tracked every movement in the room with the focus of a predator assessing threats. She was magnificent. There was no other word. Tall, easily matching Kirk's height, with the build of an Olympic athlete sculpted in bronze. Her armor was unlike anything in Federation records. A red bustier with a golden eagle across the chest, blue-starred briefs, red boots that reached her knees, and on her wrists, silver bracelets that seemed to catch and reflect light in ways that hurt to look at directly. A golden rope hung coiled at her hip, and Kirk's tactical mind immediately classified it as a weapon. I am Captain James T. Kirk of the United Federation of Planets Starship Enterprise. You're safe here. We mean you no harm. The woman's eyes settled on him, and Kirk felt the weight of that gaze like a physical thing. She studied him for a long moment, then spoke in a voice that carried the cadence of ancient authority. I am Diana, Princess of Themyscira, daughter of Hippolyta, formed from clay and given life by the gods of Olympus. I am called Wonder Woman. She paused, head tilting slightly. And I am very far from home. Her accent was strange. Not quite Greek, not quite anything in the Universal Translator's database, yet perfectly comprehensible. McCoy's scanner chirped insistently as he waved it over her. His face went pale. Jim. The doctor's voice was quiet, urgent. Her physiology, it's human, but enhanced beyond anything I've ever seen. Muscle density is off the charts. Bone structure appears reinforced at the molecular level. And she's generating a low-level energy field that my scanner can't quite classify. It's almost like she's radiating divinity. Diana's expression softened slightly. Your healer speaks truth. I am Amazon, born of magic and trained in the arts of war for 3,000 years. I do not age. I do not tire easily. And I do not surrender. The security team shifted nervously. Kirk raised a hand, keeping his voice calm. 3,000 years? Give or take a century. Time moves differently on Themyscira. She swung her legs off the biobed with fluid grace, standing to her full height. Every security officer tensed. I was attempting to return home through a portal of our own making when something went wrong. The energies collided with something else. A tear in the very fabric of existence. Her eyes found Kirk's again. Tell me, Captain Kirk. What manner of vessel is this? What power drives you between the stars? And why do you dress your warriors in colors so bright they announce their presence to any enemy? Despite the situation, Kirk felt a smile tug at his lips. It's a long story, Princess. And I think we have a lot to discuss. Starting with where exactly you came from, and whether that rift is going to bring any more surprises through. Diana's hand moved to the golden rope at her hip, a gesture Kirk recognized as unconscious habit. The rift is closing. I felt it seal behind me. As for where I came from, she looked toward the ceiling, as if she could see through the hall to the stars beyond. I come from a world called Earth. But I suspect it is not the same Earth as yours. The gods told us of infinite realities, infinite possibilities. It seems they spoke truth. Another Earth. McCoy muttered. Parallel universe theory. Jim, this is fascinating? Kirk supplied, borrowing Spock's favorite word. Yes, Bones. It certainly is. He gestured toward the door. Princess Diana, I'd like to invite you to the bridge. I think my science officer will have questions. Many, many questions. And perhaps together we can figure out how to get you home. Diana studied him for another long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well, Captain Kirk. I will trust you. For now. But know this, I am a warrior and a princess. I have faced gods and monsters. If this is a deception, if you mean harm to the innocent, you will find that even the vastness of space offers no refuge from Amazon justice. The security team raised their phasers. Kirk waved them down again. Noted, Princess. And I assure you, the Federation doesn't make a habit of harming the innocent. Though I suspect you and I might have very different definitions of that word. Her smile was slight but genuine. Then we shall have much to discuss indeed, Captain. As they walked toward the turbolift, Kirk caught McCoy's worried expression. The doctor leaned close, voice low. Jim, she could probably tear through that bulkhead with her bare hands. And she's talking about gods like they're real. Kirk kept his voice equally quiet. I know, Bones. But she saved herself from hard vacuum, survived spatial displacement, and hasn't attacked despite being surrounded by armed strangers. That shows remarkable restraint. Maybe even honor. Or maybe, McCoy countered, she's waiting to see what we're really about before deciding whether to tear this ship apart. That, Kirk admitted as the turbolift doors opened and Diana stepped inside with the confidence of someone who had never known fear, is exactly what I would do. The bridge fell silent when the turbolift doors opened. Every head turned toward the woman who stepped onto the command deck with the bearing of someone who had walked into throne rooms and battlefields with equal comfort. Kirk watched his crew's reactions, Sula's barely concealed awe, Chekhov's wide-eyed wonder, Uhura's analytical assessment. But it was Spock's reaction that interested him most. The Vulcan's right eyebrow climbed precisely 1.3 centimeters higher than normal. Fascinating. Diana's gaze swept across the bridge, taking in the view screen, the controls, the cruise stations. Your ship navigates the stars without sails or oars. You communicate across the void. You turn space itself into a road. She moved toward the science station, and Spock stood to meet her. You are different from the others. Your blood runs green, not red. Vulcan? Spock's other eyebrow joined the first. You know of Vulcans? No, Diana said simply. But I can sense the discipline in you. The rigid control over emotion. It radiates from your mind like heat from forged fire. You have built walls inside yourself, logical one. Impressive walls. Princess Diana, Kirk interjected smoothly. This is my first officer and science officer, Commander Spock. If anyone can help us understand how you arrived here, it's him. The readings from the dimensional rift are unlike anything in Federation records, Spock began, already falling into lecture mode. The energy signature suggests a collision between your universe's physical laws and ours. However, your continued existence and apparent health indicate remarkable adaptability. Diana smiled. The gods blessed me with many gifts, Commander. Adaptability among them. Her hand moved to the golden rope at her hip, fingers brushing its coils with obvious affection. But I am curious about your people. You speak of a federation. A union of worlds? Over 150 member planets, Kirk said, pride evident in his voice. United in peaceful exploration, scientific advancement, and mutual defense. We explore the galaxy, seeking out new life and new civilizations. And when you find these civilizations, Diana asked, her tone sharpening, what do you do? Conquer them? Enlighten them? Force them to join your federation? We observe, Spock answered. The Prime Directive, our most sacred law, forbids interference with the natural development of pre-warp civilizations. We do not impose our values or technology upon others. Diana's expression shifted, something dangerous flickering in those ancient eyes. You watch. You observe. And if you see injustice? Oppression? Slavery? Kirk felt the trap closing but couldn't see how to avoid it. We document. We study. But we don't interfere. Every civilization has the right to develop according to its own path, even if that path seems difficult to us. Even if children suffer? Diana's voice remained calm, but Kirk heard steel beneath the words. Even if the strong crush the weak? You have ships that can cross the stars, weapons that can tear worlds apart, and you choose to do nothing? We choose to respect sovereign development. Spock said. History has shown that interference, however well-intentioned, often leads to catastrophic consequences. Diana's laugh was bitter. History has also shown that evil unopposed grows stronger. I have lived 3,000 years, Commander. I have seen empires rise on the backs of slaves, watched tyrants burn cities while good men debated philosophy. Inaction is not neutrality. It is complicity. The bridge had gone very quiet. McCoy stepped forward, his southern drawl thoughtful. You sound like you've made different choices, Princess. I am an Amazon, Diana said simply. We were created by the gods to be a light in the darkness, to show humanity a better path. When I see injustice, I act. When I see the innocent threatened, I defend them. That is not interference. That is duty. Kirk studied her carefully. She wasn't grandstanding or seeking argument, she genuinely believed every word. And more troubling, part of him agreed with her. Princess, the galaxy is vast. We can't save everyone. We can't be everywhere. If we violated the Prime Directive every time we saw something we didn't like, we'd be no better than conquerors imposing our will. There is a difference, Diana said quietly, between imposing your will and offering your hand. Between conquest and protection. Your Prime Directive assumes all civilizations want to be left alone. Did you ask them? Spock tilted his head. An illogical question. By the time a civilization develops warp capability, they can speak for themselves. Before that, we cannot make contact without fundamentally altering their development. Cannot? Or will not? Diana moved to the view screen, staring out at the stars. I once knew a warrior, a man called Superman, who believed much as you do, Commander. He feared his power, worried that using it would make him a tyrant. And so he held back, always pulling his punches, always questioning whether he had the right to act. She turned back to face them. Until the day he realized that power without action is just another word for cowardice. That's not fair, Kirk said, feeling heat rise in his chest. We've saved countless lives, defended the Federation against hostile forces, negotiated peace between warring species. When they had warp drive, Diana interrupted. When they met your arbitrary standard of worthiness. What of those who suffer under governments that suppress technology? What of civilizations destroyed before they ever reached the stars? The golden rope at her hip began to glow softly. Diana noticed and placed her hand on it, seeming to calm both herself and the artifact. Forgive me, Captain Kirk. I do not mean to judge what I do not fully understand. Your Federation has clearly accomplished great things. But I am a warrior born to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The idea of watching suffering and calling it respect for sovereignty. She shook her head. It troubles me deeply. Kirk found himself at a crossroads. Part of him wanted to defend Starfleet policy, to explain the careful reasoning behind the Prime Directive. But another part, the part that had bent or broken that directive more times than he cared to count, understood exactly what Diana was saying. Captain, Uhura's voice broke the tension. Long-range sensors are detecting a distress signal. Frequency suggests a Federation colony world, Theta Cygni 7. They're reporting orbital bombardment from an unknown vessel. Kirk's jaw tightened. Battle stations. Mr. Sulu, plot an intercept course, maximum warp. Chekhov, charge weapons. Diana's eyes gleamed. Now we see what your Federation truly values. Action, Captain Kirk? Or observation? That's a Federation colony, Kirk said, moving to his command chair. Our people. We're obligated to defend them. And if it were not your people? Diana pressed. If it were a pre-warp civilization being slaughtered? Would you intervene then? Kirk met her gaze and saw the test for what it was. I would have to follow the Prime Directive. Then your directive is a shield for your conscience, not a moral principle. You act when convenient, when rules permit. That is not justice, Captain. That is politics. Spock's voice was measured. Princess Diana, you oversimplify a complex ethical framework developed over centuries of difficult experience. Perhaps, Diana acknowledged. Or perhaps you have spent centuries rationalizing inaction. She moved toward the turbolift. With your permission, Captain, I would join you in defending this colony. I am a warrior. Let me be useful. Kirk hesitated only a moment. Whatever else she was, Diana had survived vacuum and dimensional displacement. If they were heading into battle, having an apparent goddess on their side seemed prudent. Granted. But you follow my orders on my ship. Diana's smile was enigmatic. I will follow your orders, Captain Kirk. As long as they do not violate my oath to defend the innocent. The moment they do. She let the sentence hang. Arriving at Theta Cygni 7 in 4 minutes, Sulu announced. Kirk settled into his chair, very aware of the immortal warrior princess standing behind him, her presence a constant reminder that his careful balance between action and restraint had just become infinitely more complicated. Red alert, he ordered. All hands to battle stations. Theta Cygni 7 burned. The view screen showed a world wrapped in smoke and fire, orbital strikes lancing down from a vessel that looked like nothing in Starfleet's database. The ship was angular, brutal, all hard edges and weapon emplacements, painted in colors that seemed designed to intimidate rather than identify. It hung in low orbit like a vulture, methodically destroying population centers with disruptor fire. Scanning the attacking vessel, Spock reported, his voice tight. Configuration unknown. Technology appears comparable to Klingon design but with significant modifications. They are targeting civilian infrastructure, power generation, water treatment, residential zones. Hail them, Kirk ordered. Uhura's fingers danced across her console. No response, Captain. They're ignoring us. Kirk's hands gripped the armrests of his command chair. Fire a warning shot across their bow. Let them know we're here. The Enterprise's phasers lanced out, a brilliant beam of coherent energy that sliced through space mere meters from the attacking ship's hull. The vessel's response was immediate. It broke orbit and wheeled toward them, weapons already charging. Incoming fire! Chekhov shouted. Evasive maneuvers! Return fire, full phasers! The Enterprise rocked as disruptor blasts hammered against her shields. Sulu's hands flew across the helm, sending the massive starship into a banking turn that would have been impossible without inertial dampeners. Return fire from the Enterprise scored direct hits on the attacker's shields, but they held. Diana stood near the science station, balanced perfectly despite the ship's violent maneuvering, watching the tactical display with the eyes of someone who had commanded armies. Captain, there are still people on that planet. While you fight this ship, they die. I'm aware of that, Princess, Kirk said through gritted teeth. Another salvo shook the bridge. Damage report. Shields at 68%, Sulu called out. Hull integrity holding. The attacking ship suddenly broke off, accelerating back toward the planet. Kirk's tactical instincts screamed warning. They're running. Spock, analysis? Negative, Captain. They are not retreating. They are repositioning to resume planetary bombardment. It appears we were merely an interruption. Diana's voice cut through the bridge chatter like a blade. They don't care about you, Captain Kirk. You're an annoyance. Their target is the defenseless people below. And while your ship trades fire up here, those people burn. Kirk's mind raced. The Enterprise could pursue, engage, potentially destroy the attacker. But the ship was fast, maneuverable, and every second of combat was another second of orbital bombardment. Standard engagement protocols suggested calling for reinforcements, establishing a blockade, forcing surrender through superior firepower. But Diana was right. People were dying now. Mr. Spock, can we beam survivors up from the surface? The bombardment is creating severe atmospheric interference, Captain. Transport would be unreliable and dangerous. I estimate a 37% chance of fatal pattern degradation. Unacceptable. Kirk stood, pacing the 3 steps his command chair allowed. The attacker was already firing again, targeting what sensors indicated was a hospital complex. Kirk watched 500 life signs vanish in an instant. Diana moved to stand beside him, her voice low but intense. You have the power to stop this. Your ship is faster, stronger. End them. I'm trying to save lives, Princess, not take them. Sometimes, Diana said, her ancient eyes meeting his. Those are the same thing. That ship has killed thousands in the minutes since we arrived. How many more will die while you pursue a bloodless solution that may not exist? Captain, Uhura interrupted. I'm receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's Governor Marston. On screen. The view screen split, showing both the attacking ship and the haggard face of a middle-aged woman covered in dust and blood. Behind her, flames painted the sky orange. Enterprise, thank God. They came out of nowhere 3 hours ago. Demanded our dilithium reserves, our food stores, everything. When we refused, they started killing us. Entire cities are gone. We're a colony of farmers and researchers, Captain. We have no defenses. Please. The transmission cut off as another strike hit near her location. The life signs in that sector flickered and dimmed. Kirk's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Target their weapon systems. Precision strikes only. Disable, don't destroy. Aye, Captain. The Enterprise surged forward, Sula pushing the impulse engines to maximum. Phasers stabbed out with surgical accuracy, targeting the attacker's weapon emplacements. 2 direct hits. But the ship's shields adapted, rotating frequencies to compensate. They're learning our phaser frequency, Spock observed. Recommendation, switch to photon torpedoes. Do it. Diana watched the tactical display, her warrior's mind reading the battle with 3,000 years of experience. Captain, they're sacrificing defensive positioning to maintain firing solutions on the planet. They want you to attack. They're using those people as bait. Kirk saw it immediately. She was right. Every time the Enterprise maneuvered for a clear shot, the attacker shifted just enough to keep civilian targets in the potential crossfire. They were daring him to risk collateral damage, betting that his conscience would slow his hand. They were right. Captain Kirk, Diana said, and her voice carried the weight of centuries. In the time we've been here, over 2,000 people have died. Your prime directive says you cannot interfere with natural development. But this is not development. This is slaughter. What does your directive say about standing by while the innocent are murdered? The prime directive doesn't apply here. Kirk shot back. This is a Federation colony. We're authorized to defend it. Then defend it. Diana's patience finally cracked. Stop trying to fight with one hand tied behind your back. That ship is crewed by murderers and pirates. They have chosen violence. They have forfeited mercy. End them before they end more lives. I won't commit genocide to prevent genocide. Then what will you do? Diana challenged. Watch? Document? Write a beautiful report about how you witnessed atrocity and chose the moral high ground while people who trusted the Federation for protection died screaming? The bridge had gone silent. Every officer watched the exchange, and Kirk knew they were all thinking the same thing. They had the firepower to end this in seconds. One full spread of photon torpedoes, maximum yield. The attacking ship would be vapor. And so would any pretense that the Federation was better than its enemies. Captain, Spock's voice broke the standoff. I may have a solution. The attacking vessel's shields are strong, but they are not adaptable to rapid frequency modulation. If we coordinate a simultaneous phaser and photon torpedo strike, each on rotating frequencies, their shields will not be able to compensate. Casualties on the attacking ship? Kirk demanded. Uncertain. The strategy is designed to disable their weapons and propulsion. However, given the power requirements, there is a 73% probability of catastrophic systems failure. Crew's survival would depend on their ability to reach escape pods before their ship tears itself apart. Kirk finished. He looked at Diana. That's as close to bloodless as we're going to get. Diana's expression was unreadable. In war, Captain, there is no such thing as bloodless. There are only choices about whose blood will be spilled. Make yours. Kirk settled back into his command chair, the weight of command settling onto his shoulders like it did every time he gave this particular type of order. Mr. Sulu, Mr. Chekhov, coordinate firing solutions. Simultaneous strike on my mark. Uhura, broadcast to the attacking ship on all frequencies. Warn them to abandon ship. Captain, they're not responding to hails, Uhura reported. Then at least we tried. Gentlemen, fire when ready. The Enterprise unleashed hell. Phasers and torpedoes struck in perfect synchronization, frequencies rotating so fast that the attacking ship's shields flickered like a strobe light, desperately trying to adapt. For 3 seconds the shields held. Then they collapsed entirely. The torpedoes punched through the unprotected hull, detonating inside the ship's engineering section. The vessel shuddered, atmosphere venting from a dozen breaches. Secondary explosions rippled along its spine. And then, as Spock had predicted, the ship began tearing itself apart. Detecting escape pods launching, Spock reported. 17 total. Approximately 120 life forms. The ship's crew complement was estimated at 400. Kirk watched the attacking vessel die, watched the escape pods scatter like seeds on the wind. 280 people dead by his order. Murderers, yes. Pirates and slavers, probably. But dead all the same. Tractor beam the escape pods, Kirk ordered quietly. Take them into custody. Mr. Sulu, take us into orbit. Begin emergency beam-up of survivors from the planet. Medical teams to transporter rooms immediately. Prioritize the critically wounded. Diana placed a hand on his shoulder, and Kirk was surprised to feel no judgment in the gesture. You made the right choice, Captain. You saved thousands by sacrificing hundreds who had already chosen the path of violence. Did I? Kirk looked at her, genuinely uncertain. Or did I just prove that the Federation's principles are negotiable when the stakes get high enough? Your principles required you to save lives, Diana said. You did. That is not negotiable. That is fundamental. She paused, looking at the burning world on the view screen. But I understand your doubt. Every warrior who has ever made such a choice carries it. The weight of the dead, even when their deaths were necessary. It is the price of power, Captain Kirk. The burden of those who can act when others cannot. Kirk studied her face, seeing something there he hadn't expected. Understanding, yes, but also sadness. An ancient sadness that spoke of similar choices made across millennia. How many times have you made this choice, Princess? Enough, Diana said quietly. To know that doubt is what separates the warrior from the murderer. The moment you stop questioning these decisions is the moment you become the enemy you're fighting. Captain, Uhura called. Governor Marston is hailing us. Audio only. Put her through. The governor's voice was raw with exhaustion and relief. Enterprise, thank you. If you hadn't arrived when you did, we've lost so much already, but you saved what remained. We're in your debt. Kirk's throat was tight. No debt, Governor. That's what the Federation does. We protect our own. He paused. I'm sorry we couldn't arrive sooner. You came, the governor said simply. That's what matters. Marston out. The connection closed. Kirk looked around his bridge, at his crew's faces. They had won. They had saved thousands of lives. But the taste of victory was bitter, complicated by the knowledge that they had also ended hundreds of lives to do it. Diana moved back toward the science station, giving Kirk space. Spock approached, his voice low. Captain, the princess raises uncomfortable questions. Yes, Kirk agreed. She does. I find myself uncertain how to refute her arguments. Logically, the Prime Directive exists to prevent the exact scenario we just executed, using superior force to impose our will. Yet the alternative was unconscionable. Kirk met his friend's eyes. That's the problem with principles, Spock. They're beautiful in theory. In practice, they collide with reality and force us to make impossible choices. Indeed. I suspect that having Princess Diana aboard will force us to confront such choices more frequently than we would prefer. Kirk watched Diana examining the bridge controls with the curiosity of a scholar and the wariness of a warrior. I suspect you're right. And I'm not sure if that's a blessing or a curse. Perhaps, Spock suggested, it is both. The Orion Syndicate operated in the shadows between empires, trading in commodities that civilized worlds preferred to pretend didn't exist. Slaves, weapons, narcotics, stolen technology, anything that turned a profit. Kirk had encountered them before, always leaving the encounters with a sour taste in his mouth and the frustration of knowing that for every smuggler he arrested, 10 more slipped through the cracks. He hadn't expected to encounter them 3 days after Theta Cygni 7, and he certainly hadn't expected Diana to walk directly into their trap. Captain's log, Stardate 3947.6. We've responded to a distress call from a civilian transport claiming engine failure near the Rigel system. Princess Diana has requested to join the landing party, citing her desire to understand Federation rescue protocols. Against my better judgment, I've agreed. The transport was small, listing badly in space, venting plasma from what appeared to be a catastrophic warp core breach. Textbook distress scenario. Kirk, Spock, Diana, and 2 security officers materialized in the transport's cargo bay, phasers drawn. The bay was empty. Too empty. Spock? Kirk's instincts were screaming. Curious, Captain? Sensors indicated 17 life forms aboard this vessel. I detect none. Diana's hand moved to her lasso. It's a trap. The cargo bay doors slammed shut. Gas began hissing from hidden vents, a sickly green vapor that filled the chamber in seconds. Kirk felt his limbs grow heavy, his vision blurring. He heard Spock collapse beside him, heard the security officers hit the deck. Fought to reach his communicator, but his fingers wouldn't obey. Diana stood unaffected, spinning to face the doors as they opened. Orion slavers poured through, their green skin gleaming, disruptors raised. She moved like lightning, bracelets deflecting the first volley of energy blasts back at the attackers. 2 went down screaming. But there were too many. A net fell from above, crackling with energy that made even Diana stumble. More Orions rushed forward, and Kirk watched through dimming consciousness as they overwhelmed her through sheer numbers, a dozen bodies dragging her down. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Diana's furious eyes, burning with Amazon rage. Kirk woke to the sound of McCoy's voice and the familiar hum of the Enterprise sickbay. His head pounded like a Klingon war drum. Easy, Jim. You took a hefty dose of Rigelian hypnogas. You're lucky they didn't kill you outright. Diana? Kirk croaked, trying to sit up. McCoy's face was grim. Gone. They took her and left the rest of you. Scotty beamed you back when your biosigns started dropping. By the time we scanned the transport, it was empty. Kirk swung his legs off the bed despite McCoy's protests. His head swam, but fury burned through the nausea. How long? 4 hours. Jim, you need to rest. How long has she been in their hands, Bones? 4 hours, McCoy repeated quietly. Kirk's jaw tightened. 4 hours was an eternity to the Orion Syndicate. They could have taken Diana anywhere, sold her to anyone. An immortal warrior princess with superhuman abilities would fetch a price beyond calculation on the slave markets. He stormed onto the bridge. Report. Spock turned from the science station, his usual composure slightly ruffled. Captain, we have tracked the transport's trajectory to a hidden facility on Rigel VI's third moon. Long-range scans detect substantial shielding and what appears to be a major syndicate operation. Security estimates indicate approximately 200 personnel. They took one of our people, Kirk said flatly. We're getting her back. Assemble a security team, full tactical gear. We go in heavy. Jim. Spock's tone carried a note of caution. The princess is formidable. It is possible she does not require rescue. She walked into that trap because she was with us, following Federation protocols. Kirk countered. That makes her our responsibility. We don't leave people behind. What Kirk didn't say, what he barely admitted to himself, was that part of him wondered if Diana had been right all along. The Syndicate operated with impunity because the Federation was bound by laws, treaties, jurisdictional regulations. They hid in the cracks of civilization, preying on the vulnerable while good men debated proper procedure. Maybe it was time to stop debating. The Rigel facility was built into the moon's rocky surface, shielded from casual scans but obvious once you knew where to look. Kirk led the security team through the main entrance after Scotty's surgical phaser work disabled the door mechanisms. They encountered surprisingly light resistance. 3 guards, dispatched quickly with stun settings. Too easy. Kirk's instincts screamed again. They found the slave pens in the lower levels. Rows of cells holding beings from a dozen species, all tagged and catalogued like merchandise. Kirk's stomach churned. This wasn't just a smuggling operation. This was industrial-scale trafficking. Captain, one of the security officers called. You need to see this. The holding area had been a secure facility. Past tense. The reinforced doors were torn from their hinges, twisted metal scattered like paper. Energy restraints lay shattered on the floor. Scorch marks on the walls suggested disruptor fire, lots of it. And in the center of the carnage stood Diana. She was magnificent and terrible. Her armor was scorched, her hair wild, and her eyes blazed with righteous fury. Around her lay nearly 24 Orion slavers, unconscious or groaning. She held one by the throat, lifted one-handed off the ground, while her other hand gripped her glowing lasso. Where are the others? Diana demanded, her voice like thunder. Where do you send the children? The Orion gasped for air, green skin paling. The procurement center. Rigel 4, please. Diana's lasso pulsed brighter. The truth, slaver. The lasso compels it. It's the truth, the Orion wailed. We send the young ones there. They bring better prices. Please, I'm just a guard, Diana released him. He crumpled to the deck, sobbing. She turned to face Kirk, and for a moment he saw something beyond human in her eyes. Something ancient and implacable. Captain Kirk. How fortunate. I was about to come looking for you. Kirk approached carefully, aware that he was in the presence of someone who had just torn through a fortified facility like tissue paper. Princess, are you hurt? No. Diana looked down at her hands, at the unconscious Orions. Some of the fire faded from her eyes, replaced by something harder to read. They attempted to restrain me. To sell me. Me. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. 3,000 years, and I still encounter those who mistake patience for weakness. Spock examined the destruction with scientific interest. Fascinating. The structural damage suggests force application exceeding 20,000 kilograms. The energy restraints were rated to contain a small starship. They were insufficient, Diana said simply. She gestured to the cells. These people are slaves, Captain. Taken from their homes, sold like animals. Your Federation knows this happens. Your laws acknowledge it. Yet the Syndicate continues to operate. Why? Kirk felt the familiar weight of defending the indefensible. We don't have jurisdiction in non-Federation space. The Orions are technically neutral. We can't just... Can't? Or won't? Diana moved toward the cells, her fingers tracing the force field controls. I learned something while I was imprisoned here, Captain. I learned that they have been operating this facility for 17 years. 17 years of suffering, happening in the darkness while your mighty Federation explores the stars and debates the finer points of sovereignty. She deactivated the force fields. Beings of various species emerged cautiously, blinking in the light, hope and fear warring on their faces. Princess, we can't just free them. Kirk started. There are protocols, asylum procedures. Protocols? Diana's voice was soft, dangerous. Tell me, Captain Kirk, what protocol exists for a mother stolen from her children? What asylum procedure helps a child who has known nothing but chains? She turned to face him fully. You're a good man. I see that. But you serve a system that permits evil to exist because stopping it would be inconvenient. That's not fair, Kirk said, but the words felt hollow. Fair? Diana's laugh was bitter. Nothing about this is fair. But it can be just. Right now, we have the power to free these people, to end this place. We can give them their lives back. All it requires is for you to act. Kirk looked at the freed slaves, at their desperate faces. Looked at his security team, waiting for orders. Looked at Spock, whose expression revealed nothing but whose silence spoke volumes. The law said he should secure the prisoners, report the facility to the proper authorities, let the diplomatic machinery grind through its processes. By the time that happened, the Syndicate would have moved, erased evidence, disappeared into the shadows. Diana was right. He had the power to act. The question was whether he had the courage. Secure the facility, Kirk ordered. Free all prisoners. Mr. Spock, download their entire database, trafficking routes, buyer identities, everything. We're taking this whole operation down. Diana's smile was small but genuine. Thank you, Captain? Don't thank me yet, Kirk said grimly. Starfleet Command is going to have my head for this. Then we will face them together, Diana replied. A captain who risks his career to do what's right is a captain worth following. As they led the freed slaves toward the Enterprise's transporter coordinates, Kirk couldn't shake the feeling that he had just crossed a line from which there was no return. Diana had shown him the gap between law and justice, and now he couldn't unsee it. For better or worse, the Amazon princess was changing him. The Klingon battlecruiser decloaked directly off the Enterprise's starboard bow, disruptors armed, a predator announcing its presence with a snarl. Kirk had exactly 3 seconds to decide whether this was first contact or last rites. Hailing frequencies, Uhura. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a face that Kirk recognized from intelligence briefings. Commander Kor, one of the Empire's most decorated warriors. His dark features split into a grin that showed too many teeth. Captain Kirk. How predictable to find you meddling in affairs that don't concern the Federation. The Orion Syndicate has filed a complaint. Something about destroyed property and stolen merchandise. Kirk kept his voice level. The merchandise were sentient beings, Commander. We liberated slaves, not stole property. There's a difference. Is there? Kor's grin widened. The Empire acknowledges no such distinction. The strong take what they will. The weak suffer what they must. This is the natural order. Natural for jackals, perhaps. Diana's voice cut across the bridge. She had moved to stand beside Kirk's chair, her presence commanding attention even through subspace transmission. Not for warriors. Kor's expression shifted, predatory interest replacing casual mockery. And what manner of creature are you, woman? You dress like a warrior but speak like a philosopher. The combination is intriguing. I am Diana of Themyscira, Princess of the Amazons. and I have faced warrior races across 3,000 years. None have impressed me with boasts alone. The bridge went utterly silent. Kirk shot Diana a warning look, but she ignored him, her gaze locked on Kor's image with the intensity of a duelist measuring an opponent. Kor's laugh was genuine, delighted. 3,000 years. Impossible. And yet. His eyes narrowed. I sense no deception in you. Remarkable. Tell me, Princess of Themyscira, have you ever faced a Klingon in combat? I have faced gods and monsters. What is one more warrior? Kirk stood quickly. Commander Kor, Princess Diana is under Federation protection. Any challenge to her is a challenge to the Enterprise itself. Peace, Kirk. I make no challenge. Kor's tone shifted, became almost respectful. Yet. The princess speaks of warriors and honor. Such words should be tested. I propose an exchange. The princess visits my ship, experiences Klingon hospitality, perhaps shares tales of these 3,000 years. In return, I will overlook this unfortunate incident with the Orion facility. Absolutely not. Kirk said flatly. I accept. Diana said simultaneously. Kirk turned to her. Princess, this is not a diplomatic dinner party. Klingon view hospitality as an opportunity to test strength. They'll try to kill you just to see if they can. Diana's smile was sharp. Let them try. Captain, Spock interjected quietly. Klingon honor protocols are quite specific. If Commander Kor has offered hospitality, he is bound by tradition to protect his guest. Violation would bring considerable shame. Unless she proves unworthy of protection, Kirk countered. Then killing her becomes permissible, even encouraged. Then I will simply have to prove worthy. Diana looked at Kor's image. I will visit your ship, Commander. But know this, I am Amazon. We do not bow, we do not submit, and we do not surrender. If you seek to test me, be prepared for the consequences. Kor's grin was savage. I would expect nothing less. Transport to my ship in 1 hour. Come armed, it would insult us both if you arrived defenseless. The transmission cut. Kirk rounded on Diana. What were you thinking? You just walked into another trap? Diana's expression was calm. Perhaps. Or perhaps an opportunity. You've told me the Klingon Empire is one of the Federation's greatest rivals. That they respect strength above all else. Very well. Let me show them strength. Let me show them what it means to face an Amazon warrior. Either I earn their respect, or I eliminate a future threat. Both outcomes serve your Federation. Or they kill you. McCoy said, having arrived on the bridge during the exchange. They're not exactly known for fair fights, Princess. Neither am I, Doctor. Diana's hand moved to her lasso. I have fought in wars that would break your minds to witness. I have stood alone against armies. I do not fear Klingon. I pity them if they force me to demonstrate why. Spock raised an eyebrow. A logical, if somewhat aggressive, approach to diplomacy. Commander Kor is known for respecting martial prowess. If the princess can prove herself, it may establish a foundation for future negotiations. Or start a war. Kirk muttered. But he recognized the look in Diana's eyes. She had made her decision. And short of stunning her and locking her in the brig, he couldn't stop her. 1 hour later, Diana stood in the transporter room, checking her equipment with a warrior's precision. Kirk stood beside her, wanting to say something that would make this less insane but finding no words adequate. Captain, Diana said quietly, I know you think I'm reckless. But I have lived long enough to recognize certain truths. The Klingon value strength. They despise weakness disguised as diplomacy. If you want peace with them, they must believe you're capable of war. Let me be that capability. You're not a weapon, Princess. No, Diana agreed. I'm a warrior. There's a difference. A weapon has no choice. I choose to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And right now, that includes your Federation, whether you realize it or not. Kirk studied her face, seeing determination older than some civilizations. If you're not back in 6 hours, I'm coming after you. If I'm not back in 6 hours, it means I've found worthy opponents and the contest continues. Give me 12. Diana smiled. But I appreciate the concern, Captain. It's very human. Energize, Kirk ordered. Diana dissolved into sparkles of light and was gone. The Klingon battlecruiser's interior was exactly what Kirk had expected, dark, brutal, designed to intimidate. Diana materialized on the transporter pad to find herself surrounded by warriors, each watching her with predatory anticipation. Kor stepped forward, dressed in full ceremonial armor. Princess Diana. Welcome aboard the IKS Coronar. You honor us with your presence. And you honor me with your challenge, Commander. Diana descended from the platform, moving into the center of the Klingon warriors without hesitation. Shall we begin? Direct. I approve. Kor gestured to a corridor. First we feast. Then we test. It is the Klingon way, nourishment before battle, celebration before death. The feast was as aggressive as everything else Klingon. Living serpent worms, blood wine that could strip paint, and constant verbal sparring that tested wit as much as courage. Diana matched them drink for drink, barb for barb, earning grudging respect with each exchange. You claimed 3,000 years of life. One warrior challenged, a massive Klingon named Koloth. Prove it. Tell us of battles that would test even Klingon courage. Diana set down her goblet. Very well. I will tell you of Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held a pass against an army of hundreds of thousands. I will tell you of the siege of Troy, which lasted 10 years and ended in fire and betrayal. I will tell you of wars fought before your empire existed, before your world knew the stars. Her voice dropped, taking on the cadence of an ancient storyteller. And I will tell you why, in all those battles, it was not the strongest who survived, but the most honorable. She spoke for an hour, weaving tales of ancient warfare that held the Klingons spellbound. These were warriors who lived for combat, and Diana gave them visions of battles that transcended mere fighting, contests of will, honor, sacrifice. When she finished, Kor stood slowly. Your words ring with truth. No one could invent such details, such passion. You have lived as you claim. He drew his DK Tog, the traditional Klingon blade. Now prove you can fight as well as you speak. Face me, Amazon. Let us see if 3,000 years of experience can match Klingon fury. Diana rose, uncoiling her lasso. With pleasure, Commander. The combat deck was a circular arena surrounded by shouting warriors. Kor and Diana faced each other across 10 meters of scarred metal, each measuring the other. Kor attacked first, a lightning-fast strike that would have gutted a normal opponent. Diana's bracelets rang as she deflected the blade, spinning away from his follow-up strike. The lasso snaked out, wrapping around his wrist. Kor roared, pulling against it, and stumbled as Diana used his own strength to off-balance him. They traded attacks, either giving ground. Kor fought with brutal efficiency, every strike meant to kill. Diana countered with precision, 3 millennia of technique against raw Klingon power. Her bracelets deflected his blade again and again, creating a rhythm like hammer on anvil. Then Kor changed tactics, feinting low and striking high. His blades slipped past Diana's guard, scoring a cut across her shoulder. First blood. The Klingon warriors roared approval. Diana touched the wound, looked at her blood, and smiled. Well struck, Commander. You're injured. Yield, and you'll leave with honor. Yield? Diana's eyes blazed. I am Amazon. We do not yield. She moved faster than Kor could track, her lasso wrapping around his legs, pulling them out from under him. He hit the deck hard, and Diana was on him instantly, one knee on his chest, the glowing lasso at his throat. Yield, she said quietly. The arena fell silent. A Klingon commander defeated. By a woman. By an outsider. Kor stared up at her, and slowly, incredibly, he began to laugh. I yield, Princess of Themyscira. You have bested me in fair combat. Rise and accept the honor you have earned. Diana stood, offering her hand. Kor took it, allowing her to pull him to his feet. He turned to face his warriors. Today we have witnessed something rare, a warrior worthy of Klingon respect. Princess Diana has proven her strength, her courage, her honor. Let any who doubt her face me first. The Klingon warriors erupted in cheers, chanting Diana's name. She stood in the center of it all, an Amazon among aliens, bridging cultures through the universal language of combat. Kor clapped her on the shoulder, grinning. You fight well, princess. Perhaps too well. The Empire could use warriors like you. The Empire will have to settle for my respect, Commander. But know this, you have earned mine as well. That is not a gift I give lightly. 6 hours later, Diana materialized back on the Enterprise, carrying a Klingon bat'leth as a gift and wearing a satisfied smile. Kirk was waiting. Well? I made friends, Diana said simply. Violent, aggressive, honor-obsessed friends. But friends nonetheless. The message came through on encrypted Romulan frequencies, a data packet so expertly concealed that even Spock's analysis took 3 hours to decode. When the contents finally displayed on the science station monitor, Kirk felt his blood run cold. They want to meet with Diana, he said, reading the decoded text. Alone. On a neutral planetoid in the neutral zone. Diana stood beside him, studying the message with ancient eyes that had seen every variation of deception. The Romulans. Your briefings describe them as strategists, master manipulators who fight with secrets and lies rather than honor. Distant cousins to the Vulcans. Spock explained. They rejected logic, embraced emotion and cunning. The Tal Shiar, their intelligence service, is one of the most dangerous organizations in known space. And they want to talk. Diana mused. Why? Because you defeated a Klingon commander in single combat. Kirk said grimly. Because you're an unknown variable. Because the Romulans hate unknowns and need to either control them or eliminate them. Diana's hand moved to her lasso. Then let them try. I'll meet with them. Absolutely not. This is textbook Romulan strategy. Isolate, assess, neutralize. They'll say whatever you want to hear while planning 12 different ways to kill you. Good, Diana said calmly. That gives me 12 opportunities to prove I cannot be killed easily. She met Kirk's gaze. Captain, I appreciate your concern. But I am a diplomat as well as a warrior. I have negotiated with gods who could unmake reality with a thought. I can handle politicians who hide in shadows. McCoy's voice crackled over the intercom. Jim, you're not seriously considering this? Kirk wasn't. He absolutely wasn't. Except that Diana had already proven she could handle Klingon, had survived situations that would kill normal humans, and possessed 3,000 years of experience in navigating treacherous politics. And the Romulans had made the request directly. Refusing would show weakness, suggest the Federation feared them. If you go, Kirk said carefully, you were a communicator. At the first sign of trouble, you signal and we beam you out. Diana considered this. Acceptable. But Captain, if they are testing me, rescuing me at the first challenge would prove I need Federation protection. That weakens both of us. Better weak than dead. I have been both, Diana said quietly. I prefer weak. The planetoid was barren, airless, a chunk of rock drifting in the neutral zone's no man's land. Diana materialized on the surface, her Amazon physiology allowing her to survive vacuum where others would perish. Across 100 meters of cratered terrain, a Romulan figure shimmered into existence. Female, Diana noted. Tall, elegant, wearing the uniform of a Tal Shiar operative with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to being the most dangerous person in any room. Her features were sharp, aristocratic, and her eyes held the calculating coldness of a predator. Princess Diana of Themyscira. The Romulan's voice was smooth, cultured. I am Commander Charvanek of the Tal Shiar. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Diana inclined her head slightly. Courtesy costs nothing. What does the Romulan Empire want with an Amazon? Direct. How refreshing. Charvanek moved closer, each step measured, controlled. The Empire has been watching you, Princess. Your arrival through a dimensional rift, your intervention at Theta Cygni 7, your liberation of Orion's slaves, your defeat of Commander Kor, all very impressive. All very concerning. Concerning how? You are powerful, unpredictable, and aligned with the Federation. This creates complications for regional stability. Diana laughed. You mean it complicates your plans for expansion? You'd prefer I didn't exist, but since I do, you want to either recruit me or neutralize me. Charvanek's smile was thin, appreciative. Your intelligence matches your strength. Yes, those are our primary objectives. But I offer a third option, partnership. Partnership with an empire built on conquest and secrecy? I think not. Yet you ally with a federation that preaches peace while maintaining one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. That celebrates diversity while enforcing rigid cultural conformity through this prime directive. Are they truly so different from us, Princess? Or merely better at justifying their contradictions? Diana felt the barb strike home because it echoed doubts she'd already voiced to Kirk. The Federation isn't perfect. But they strive toward ideals, even when they fail. What ideals does the Romulan Empire serve beyond its own power? Survival. Charvanek said simply. Strength. The protection of our people against a galaxy that would see us destroyed. Are these not worthy goals? They are means, not ends. Protection for what purpose? Strength toward what goal? Charvanek studied her for a long moment. You are not what I expected, Princess. The reports suggested a warrior, simple, direct, brutal. Instead, I find a philosopher. I am both. 3,000 years provides time to consider the nature of justice, power, and duty. I have fought beside tyrants who believed themselves heroes and heroes who feared becoming tyrants. I have learned that the line between them is thinner than most wish to admit. Then perhaps you understand our position better than the Federation does. Charvanek activated a small holographic projector. Images flickered in the airless space, Romulan worlds, cities, families. The Empire protects billions of lives, Princess. We operate in a galaxy where showing weakness invites destruction. The Federation can afford its moral luxuries because it has the strength to enforce them. We do not have that luxury. Diana watched the images, seeing the fundamental appeal of the argument. Every empire justifies itself with similar logic. Rome claimed it brought civilization. Sparta claimed it protected Greek independence. Both became what they claimed to oppose. Yet both lasted centuries. Idealism without power is merely sentiment. The Federation will learn this eventually, as all idealistic civilizations do. The question is whether you will learn it before or after they fall. Is that a threat? An observation. But since we speak plainly, yes, also a warning. Charvanek deactivated the hologram. The Empire cannot allow an unaligned power of your magnitude to operate freely in this region. You must choose, align with us, align with the Federation, or be removed as a threat to both. Diana's eyes narrowed. Removed. How? We have analyzed the sensor data from your various encounters. You are powerful but not invulnerable. Sustained assault from multiple vessels, targeting the specific frequencies your bracelets cannot deflect, coordinated to prevent escape. 43% probability of termination, 68% probability of capture. You've planned my murder quite thoroughly. We've planned for all contingencies. It's what we do. Charvanek's expression softened slightly. But I would prefer not to execute those plans. You intrigue me, Princess. A warrior who questions, a diplomat who fights, an immortal who still values mortal lives. The Empire could use someone like you. We could offer you resources, freedom to operate, planets to protect without Federation restrictions. In exchange for becoming a Romulan weapon. In exchange for becoming a partner in maintaining galactic stability on our terms rather than the Federation's. Think, Diana. How many worlds has the Prime Directive condemned to suffering because intervention was deemed inappropriate? How many people have died while Starfleet debated protocols? We could change that. Together. Diana felt the pull of the argument because parts of it were true. She had seen the Prime Directive's failures, felt frustration at Federation bureaucracy. But she had also seen what happened when power operated without accountability, when might determined right. Your offer is carefully constructed, Diana said slowly. Appeal to my frustrations with the Federation, promise me freedom to act according to my conscience, frame it as serving the greater good. Well done, Commander. But it fails on one fundamental point. Which is? I have met empires before. Roman, Ottoman, British, all promised order, stability, protection. All eventually rotted from within because power without principle corrupts absolutely. Your empire operates on fear and strength. Those are foundations built on sand. Charvanek's expression hardened. Then you choose the Federation? Even knowing their flaws? I choose myself. Diana corrected. I act according to Amazon principles, protect the innocent, fight for justice, oppose tyranny wherever I find it. If that aligns with the Federation sometimes, so be it. If it puts me at odds with your empire, I accept that consequence. That makes you an enemy. No, Commander. That makes me independent. Your empire's mistake is believing that everyone must be either ally or enemy, controlled or destroyed. Some of us simply wish to be left alone to do what's right. Charvanek's hand moved toward a device at her belt. Diana's bracelets rose reflexively. Relax, Princess. I'm not foolish enough to attack you in single combat. But this meeting has been illuminating. The Tal Shiar now has enough data on your psychology, your combat responses, your moral boundaries. That information will prove invaluable. Diana felt cold realization wash over her. The entire conversation had been a sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation. Every answer she'd given, every reaction, every value she'd expressed, all data points being analyzed. You never intended to recruit me. Oh, I would have accepted if you'd agreed. But no, the primary objective was assessment. We now know how you think, what you value, where your limits are. That makes you predictable. And predictable threats can be managed. Or eliminated. If necessary. But I suspect we'll simply monitor you for now. After all, you're currently more valuable as a disruptive force within the Federation than as a corpse. Charvanek smiled coldly. Thank you for your cooperation, Princess. This has been most productive. The Romulan commander triggered her transport, dissolving into sparkles of energy. Diana stood alone on the airless planetoid, feeling the weight of tactical defeat. She had been outmaneuvered, used as an intelligence source. She tapped her communicator. Enterprise, beam me up. Kirk was waiting in the transporter room. One look at Diana's face told him everything. They played you. Yes, Diana admitted, fury and shame warring in her voice. I thought I was being tested. Instead, I was being catalogued. Every word I spoke gave them information about how to predict me, counter me, eventually neutralize me. Welcome to Romulan diplomacy, Kirk said without satisfaction. They're very good at it. Diana's hands clenched. I have fought demigods and monsters. Give me an enemy I can face in open combat. This shadow warfare, this manipulation, it offends everything Amazon. Then you understand, Kirk said quietly, why the Federation moves slowly. Why we debate and analyze. Because out here, Princess, the greatest battles aren't fought with fists or weapons. They're fought with information, perception, positioning. The Romulans just taught you that lesson. Diana met his eyes, seeing understanding rather than judgment. I underestimated them. I won't make that mistake again. Good, Kirk said. Because I guarantee they're already planning their next move. Spock found Diana in the observation lounge at 0300 hours, staring out at the stars with an expression that suggested she was seeing far beyond the viewport. The Vulcan approached quietly, his footsteps deliberately audible, a courtesy he extended to those who might prefer solitude. "Princess, I did not mean to disturb your meditation." Diana turned, offering a slight smile. "You don't disturb, Commander. I was simply remembering. The encounter with Commander Charvanek troubles you. Is it that obvious? To a Vulcan trained in observation, yes. You have been processing the tactical defeat for 47 hours. Your combat training sessions have increased in intensity by 33%. You spend less time with the crew. These patterns suggest internal conflict." Diana gestured to the seat beside her. Spock sat with precise economy of movement, hands folded in his lap, waiting with Vulcan patience. 3,000 years, Commander Spock. I have lived 3,000 years, fought in countless wars, negotiated with beings of immense power. And yet a Romulan intelligence officer outmaneuvered me in 20 minutes. How is that possible? You approached the encounter as a warrior, Spock observed. Commander Charvanek approached it as a strategist. Different frameworks produce different outcomes. I thought I was being both. You thought you were engaging in diplomatic combat. She was conducting intelligence extraction. The fundamental mismatch in objectives gave her advantage. Spock paused. If I may ask a personal question, in 3,000 years, have you encountered many beings who match your longevity? Diana's expression shifted, something painful flickering across her features. A few. My Amazon sisters live extended lives, though not as long as mine. I have met gods who exist beyond time. And I knew someone once. Another who could not age, could not die easily. Superman. Diana's eyes snapped to Spock's face. How did you? You mentioned him during your discussion about the Prime Directive. The way you spoke suggested intimate knowledge, personal connection. It was a logical inference. Diana was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. Kal-El, Clark Kent. Superman. He was, like me, powerful beyond mortal comprehension, burdened with the question of how to use that power responsibly. We understood each other in ways no one else could. Past tense, Spock noted gently. I don't know if he exists in this universe, Commander. Everything is different here. Your Earth developed differently, reached the stars through science rather than magic and metahumans. Perhaps here, Krypton never existed. Perhaps he was never sent to Earth. Perhaps, her voice caught slightly. Perhaps I am alone in ways I have never been before. Spock considered this, his analytical mind processing the emotional weight of Diana's words. Loneliness is difficult. Even for Vulcans. We suppress emotion, but isolation remains a logical concern. To be unique is to be inherently alone. Are you lonely, Commander? The question was direct, unflinching. Spock appreciated the honesty. I am half human, half Vulcan. I belong fully to neither species. On Vulcan, I am too emotional. Among humans, I am too logical. I exist in the space between, observing both but truly joining neither. That sounds exhausting. It is challenging. But it also provides unique perspective. I see human passion through Vulcan logic through human emotion. This synthesis, while isolating, is also valuable. Diana studied him with new appreciation. You're alone in a different way than I am. But you understand. Yes. Spock hesitated, then continued. I would like to attempt something, if you permit. A mind meld, a Vulcan telepathic technique that allows direct mental contact. It would give me better understanding of your psychological state and might provide you perspective on your isolation. Diana tensed. You want inside my mind? With your consent, yes. The process is intimate but not invasive if conducted properly. I have performed melds with numerous species. However, I have never encountered a consciousness 3,000 years old. The experience would be fascinating. Despite herself, Diana smiled. Your favorite word. Indeed. She considered the offer. Every instinct warned against allowing someone into her mind. Too many secrets, too much pain, too many memories that would break a normal psyche. But Spock wasn't normal. And perhaps, just perhaps, sharing that burden would ease it. Very well, Commander. But be warned, 3 millennia of memory is not organized for easy access. You may see things that disturb even Vulcan composure. I accept that risk. Spock moved his chair closer, raising his hands to Diana's face. His fingers found the traditional contact points: temple, cheekbone, jaw. His eyes closed, and Diana felt the first tentative touch of an alien consciousness against her own. The connection opened like a floodgate. Spock had expected organized thoughts, linear memories. Instead, he encountered an ocean of experience so vast that his Vulcan mind momentarily faltered. 3,000 years of sensation, emotion, combat, loss, triumph, despair. All existing simultaneously, layered like geological strata of consciousness. He saw Themyscira, an island paradise where warrior women trained in arts humanity had forgotten. He felt young Diana's determination to prove herself among immortals, to earn her place as champion. He witnessed her first encounter with man's world, the horror of World War I's trenches, the realization that humanity was capable of both transcendent nobility and bottomless cruelty. He experienced her meeting with Superman, the profound relief of finding another being who understood the burden of power, the love that grew between two immortals in a world of mortals, the pain when she left that universe behind. He saw battles, gods falling, monsters defeated, tyrants broken. He saw diplomacy, treaties negotiated, wars prevented, understanding forged between impossible factions. And beneath it all, he felt the terrible weight of immortality. The knowledge that everyone Diana loved would age and die while she remained. The accumulation of loss, building with each passing century until grief became a constant companion. But he also felt strength. Not just physical power, but moral strength forged in the fires of impossible choices. Diana had faced situations where every option led to suffering, had chosen the path of least harm and carried the consequences without flinching. She was lonely, yes. Isolated by her power and immortality. But she was not broken. 3,000 years had tempered her into something remarkable. A warrior who questioned, a diplomat who fought, an immortal who valued mortal lives because she understood their fleeting nature made them precious. Spock withdrew from the meld, his hands falling away. He sat in silence for several moments, processing the overwhelming experience. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a respect that few earned from a Vulcan. "You are extraordinary." The strength required to maintain coherent identity across 3 millennia, to preserve moral principles despite constant challenge, to remain capable of hope after witnessing so much despair, it defies logical expectation. Diana's eyes glistened. "You saw everything. The mistakes, the failures, the moments I wasn't strong enough. I saw a being who has earned her power through suffering and wisdom. Who questions herself not from weakness but from profound understanding of her own capacity for error." Spock's expression softened fractionally. "You fear that your loneliness makes you vulnerable, that the Romulans exploited your desire for connection. But your isolation is not weakness, Diana. It is the price of principle. You refuse to compromise your values even when doing so would ease your burden. That is not vulnerability. That is integrity. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you are not Vulcan. You feel the full weight of your choices. That emotional honesty is what makes you effective. You understand the cost of action because you feel it completely." Spock paused. "If I may offer observation, you are not as alone as you believe. Captain Kirk carries similar burdens. Every decision he makes affects hundreds of lives. He questions himself constantly, fears becoming what he fights against. Dr. McCoy maintains compassion despite witnessing suffering daily. Lieutenant Uhura bridges cultural divides. We all, in our way, struggle with isolation born from responsibility." Diana absorbed this, seeing her crew in new light. I thought I was unique in my burden. The specific details are unique. The fundamental experience is universal. All beings who choose principle over comfort eventually encounter loneliness. The question is whether that loneliness destroys or refines. And which has it done to me? Spock met her eyes directly. You defeated a Klingon commander while teaching him honor. You freed slaves despite legal complications. You resist both Federation complacency and Romulan manipulation. You have been refined, princess. Burnished into something formidable. Diana felt something loosen in her chest, a tension she hadn't realized she was carrying. Thank you, Commander. For understanding. For not fearing what you saw. On the contrary, I fear you considerably. But I also respect you. The two are not mutually exclusive. The ghost of a smile touched Spock's lips. And if I may suggest, perhaps your loneliness in this universe is not permanent. You have begun forming connections aboard this vessel. Captain Kirk values your perspective. Dr. McCoy appreciates your directness. I find our philosophical discussions stimulating. You're saying I'm making friends? I am saying you possess the capacity for connection despite your isolation. Whether you choose to pursue those connections is your decision. Spock stood, returning his chair to its precise original position. I should return to my duties. But Diana, if you require further discussion, I am available. Loneliness, I have found, diminishes when shared. After Spock left, Diana remained in the observation lounge, watching the stars stream past. The encounter with Chavanek still stung, but Spock's perspective had shifted something fundamental. She wasn't alone because she was weak. She was alone because she refused to compromise, even when compromise would ease her path. That was the Amazon way. That was her way. And perhaps, in this strange universe filled with logical Vulcans and passionate humans and honor-bound Klingon and manipulative Romulans, she would find new forms of connection to ease the ancient weight of 3,000 years. The stars held no answers. But for the first time since arriving in this universe, Diana felt something close to peace. The distress call came from Epsilon Canaris 3, a Federation colony of 8,000 people nestled in a verdant valley on a world that had seemed like paradise. Past tense, because the paradise was dying. Plague, McCoy said grimly, studying the medical readings transmitted from the surface. Bacterial infection, aggressive and adaptable. It's burning through their population at exponential rates. Without intervention, they have 72 hours before total colony collapse. Kirk leaned forward in his command chair. Origin? Unknown. Could be native bacteria that mutated, could be introduced. Either way, it's killing them fast. Mr. Spock, prepare quarantine protocols. Dr. McCoy, assemble your medical team. We're going down there. Captain? Spock's voice carried a note of caution. The colony is technically in violation of Federation health regulations. They failed to complete mandatory immunological surveys before settlement. Starfleet Medical specifically warned against colonization until those surveys were complete. Kirk felt ice in his stomach. They settled anyway? Affirmative. Records indicate they were a group of agricultural enthusiasts seeking independence from what they termed Federation overregulation. They acknowledged the risks and proceeded regardless. Diana, standing near the navigation station, spoke quietly. And now they're dying because of that choice. Yes, Spock confirmed. Kirk stood, pacing the short space before his chair. They made their choice. They knew the risks. But they're still Federation citizens. Captain, Spock continued, his tone carefully neutral. Starfleet Medical has protocols for this scenario. The colony must be quarantined to prevent spread. Medical supplies and information can be provided, but direct intervention risks exposing Enterprise crew to unknown pathogens. Regulations specify observation and support, not active treatment. Observation, Diana repeated, her voice sharp. You would watch them die? I would follow established medical protocols designed to protect the greater population from pandemic outbreak. Spock countered. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. It is logical. It's cowardice disguised as logic, Diana said. McCoy opened his mouth to object, but she continued. These people made a mistake. Should the penalty for that mistake be death? All 8,000 of them, including children who had no say in their parents' choices. Kirk felt the familiar pressure building, duty versus conscience, regulation versus compassion. Bones, what are the actual risks? McCoy's weathered face was troubled. Jim, I won't lie to you. Going down there, treating infected patients directly, we could bring something back that burns through the Enterprise in days. Spock's right about the protocols. They exist for good reason. But we could save them, Kirk pressed. Maybe. If the bacteria responds to our antibiotics. If we can synthesize a cure fast enough. If we don't all get infected in the process. McCoy met Kirk's eyes. It's a hell of a gamble, Jim. Diana moved to stand directly in front of Kirk's chair. Captain, I am immune to disease. Amazon physiology renders me resistant to mortal ailments. I can go to the surface, provide direct aid, physically assist the medical teams without risk. You don't know that for certain, Kirk said. This is an alien bacterium. I have survived plagues that killed millions in my world. Black Death, Spanish flu, epidemics that would horrify your modern sensibilities. I did not sicken then. I will not sicken now. Spock interjected. Princess, while your confidence is noted, we have no scientific basis for assuming. Then test me, Diana interrupted. Beam up samples of the bacteria. Expose me to them directly. Prove whether my immunity holds or fails. But do it now, while those people still have time. Kirk looked at his officers. McCoy's expression was conflicted, the healer in him desperate to save lives, the scientist understanding the risks. Spock remained impassive, but Kirk knew his first officer well enough to see the internal calculation occurring behind those steady eyes. Do it, Kirk decided. Beam up bacterial samples. Test Diana's resistance. If she's immune, she goes down with the medical team as additional support. If not, we follow standard quarantine protocols. Captain, I must object, Spock began. Objection noted. Mr. Spock, how long will those people last while we debate procedure? Spock's jaw tightened fractionally. 68 hours at current mortality rates. Then we don't have time for extended deliberation. Move. 30 minutes later, Diana stood in sickbay's isolation chamber while McCoy injected her with concentrated samples of the Epsilon Canaris bacterium. Enough to fell a human in hours. She didn't flinch. This is insane, McCoy muttered, monitoring her vital signs with intense focus. Even if you are immune, we're playing with fire. Fire is familiar, Diana said calmly. I have walked through it before. An hour passed. 2. Diana's bioreadings remained stable. No fever, no cellular degradation, no immune response because no response was necessary. Her physiology simply rejected the bacteria as incompatible with Amazon biology. McCoy stared at his scanner in disbelief. Well, I'll be damned. She's completely unaffected. The bacteria can't even establish foothold in her system. Kirk, watching through the isolation chamber window, felt relief and trepidation warring in his chest. Clear her for surface deployment. Jim, even if she's immune, the rest of us aren't. She'll run interference. Physical labor, patient transport, anything that reduces our people's exposure time. Bones, you're the best doctor in Starfleet. If anyone can synthesize a cure from field samples, it's you. But you need time, and those colonists don't have time. Diana buys us that time. McCoy sighed, defeated by logic and compassion. All right. But we do this by the book otherwise. Full hazard suits, minimal contact, strict decontamination. I'm not losing crew because we got sloppy. The surface of Epsilon Canaris 3 should have been beautiful. Rolling hills, crystal rivers, skies so blue they hurt to look at. Instead, Kirk materialized into a nightmare. Bodies lined the streets of the colony's main settlement, covered in makeshift shrouds. The living moved among them like ghosts, hollow-eyed and exhausted. Medical facilities overflowed with patients, primitive equipment barely keeping pace with casualties. Governor Marco met them at the landing site, a woman in her 50s who looked 80. "Captain Kirk. Thank God. We're dying here. 1,400 dead already, another 2,000 showing symptoms. We're here to help, Governor. This is Princess Diana. She's immune and will provide direct support. Dr. McCoy will coordinate medical response." Marco's eyes found Diana, taking in her unusual appearance with the dull acceptance of someone past surprise. "Whatever you can do. Please." Diana moved immediately toward the medical tents, her enhanced hearing picking up the sounds of suffering, labored breathing, delirious moans, the quiet sobs of parents watching children die. She found nurses struggling to move infected patients, found doctors collapsing from exhaustion, found chaos barely contained by desperate determination. She lifted patients with ease, transported supplies that would have required multiple people, worked tirelessly while McCoy and his team collected samples and ran analyses. Hours blurred together. Kirk watched her work with growing respect. This was Diana in her element, not debating philosophy but directly alleviating suffering. But it wasn't enough. "The bacteria is adaptive," McCoy reported after 6 hours. "Every antibiotic we try, it develops resistance within minutes." "Jim, I've never seen anything like this. It's almost like it's engineered." Kirk felt cold realization. "Spock, run a detailed analysis on the bacterial structure. Look for artificial markers." 20 minutes later, Spock's voice came through Kirk's communicator, tight with controlled anger. "Captain, the bacteria is indeed artificial. Genetic markers indicate Orion Syndicate bioweapon development. This was no natural plague." Kirk's hands clenched. "They infected the colony deliberately?" "Unknown. More likely the bacteria escaped containment from a nearby Syndicate facility. However, the result is the same, weaponized disease killing Federation citizens." Diana appeared at Kirk's side, covered in sweat and others' blood but still tireless. "I heard. Someone created this deliberately? The Orion Syndicate develops bioweapons for sale. They don't care about collateral damage." Kirk's voice was steel. "Spock, locate that facility. I want coordinates now." "Captain, even if we locate it, attacking a Syndicate installation could trigger diplomatic incident. They murdered 1,400 people and counting. Diplomatic niceties are over, Spock. Find me that facility." Diana's hand touched Kirk's arm. "Captain, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that whoever created this weapon has the cure. Or at least the research that could produce one. And I'm thinking we're going to take it from them. That's theft. Possibly an act of war." Kirk met her eyes. "You told me that inaction is complicity. That standing by while people die is cowardice. Were you wrong?" Diana's smile was fierce. "No, Captain. I was not wrong. What do you need? A warrior who can't be infected, who can operate in a contaminated environment, who can tear through Syndicate defenses like tissue paper." Kirk's expression hardened. "Think you can handle that?" "Captain," Diana said, drawing her lasso. "It would be my pleasure." McCoy's voice crackled over the communicator. "Jim, whatever you're planning, do it fast. I'm losing patients every hour. We need that research data or there won't be anyone left to save." Kirk looked across the colony, at the dying and the desperate, at the failure of procedure and protocol to address real suffering. He thought about the Prime Directive, about regulations, about all the careful rules designed to prevent exactly this kind of aggressive action. And he chose to break them. "Spock, send me those coordinates." Diana, suit up. "We're going to war." The Syndicate facility was hidden in an asteroid field 12 light-years from Epsilon Canaris 3, concealed behind sensor baffles and the chaotic interference of tumbling rock. Spock's scans had located it through process of elimination, tracking subspace communication patterns and energy signatures that suggested active biological research. 53 life signs, Spock reported from the science station. Heavily armed. Defensive systems include automated weapons platforms and what appears to be a self-destruct mechanism tied to the primary research laboratory. Of course they have a self-destruct. Kirk muttered. Can't let evidence of illegal bioweapons fall into Federation hands. Diana stood on the bridge in full combat readiness, her bracelets gleaming, lasso coiled at her hip. If they trigger it, the research is destroyed. We save no one. Which is why we're doing this surgically. Beam in, secure the lab, extract the data, get out before they can react. Kirk turned to Spock. Can you disable the self-destruct remotely? Negative. The system is isolated from external access. Someone must physically disconnect it from within the facility. Then that's our first priority. Kirk stood, straightening his uniform. Diana, you're with me. Spock, you have the con. The moment you detect that self-destruct sequence initiating, beam us out regardless of mission status. Captain, going yourself is tactically inadvisable. Noted. But I won't ask my crew to do something I'm not willing to do. Kirk moved toward the turbolift. Besides, someone needs to make sure Diana doesn't tear the whole facility apart. Diana followed, her expression unreadable. You don't trust me to show restraint? I trust you completely. But I also know what righteous fury looks like. These people created a weapon that's killed over 2,000 colonists so far. If I were in your position, restraint wouldn't be my first instinct either. They materialized in a service corridor, alarms immediately shrieking. The facility's interior was industrial brutalism, metal walls, harsh lighting, the antiseptic smell of a laboratory mixed with something organic and wrong. Through the walls, Diana's enhanced hearing detected shouting, running footsteps, weapons being charged. They know we're here, she said unnecessarily. Kirk pulled his phaser, checking the setting. Heavy stun. We're not here to kill anyone if we can avoid it. Even after what they've done? Even then. We're better than they are, Diana. We have to be. They moved quickly through the corridors, following the facility schematic Spock had transmitted to Kirk's tricorder. The research lab was 3 levels down, protected by multiple security checkpoints and armed guards who appeared around corners with weapons raised. Diana's bracelets rang like bells as she deflected disruptor fire, the energy bolts ricocheting harmlessly into walls and ceiling. She moved with 3,000-year-old precision, incapacitating guards with precise strikes that left them unconscious but breathing. Kirk provided cover fire, his phaser dropping targets with practiced efficiency. But even stunned, the guards had bought time. Ahead, a massive blast door was sliding shut, designed to seal the research level and prevent unauthorized access. We won't make it, Kirk assessed, calculating distance and door speed. Diana accelerated, her superhuman speed carrying her forward in a blur. She reached the closing door with seconds to spare and braced herself against it, muscles straining as hydraulics fought Amazon strength. The door groaned, servos protesting the impossible resistance. Captain? Now! Kirk dove through the gap, rolling to his feet on the other side. Diana released the door and followed, the barrier slamming shut behind her with the finality of a tomb ceiling. The research level was different, cleaner, more organized, with the cold efficiency of a place where life was reduced to data points and experimental variables. Through transparent walls, Kirk saw laboratories filled with equipment he recognized from Starfleet medical facilities, perverted to darker purposes. And there, in the central lab, he saw her. The scientist was Orion, female, with the green skin and calculating eyes of her species. She stood before a computer terminal, one hand hovering over what Kirk's tactical mind immediately identified as the self-destruct activation switch. Federation Captain Kirk, she said, her voice carrying the lilt of Orion accent. And the famous Princess Diana. I am Dr. Navar. I would say this is an honor, but given that you've assaulted my facility and killed my security personnel, perhaps not. Stunned, not killed, Kirk corrected, keeping his phaser trained on her. Step away from that terminal, Doctor. We're here for your research on the bacterial weapon affecting Epsilon Canaris 3. Navar's smile was cold. Ah, yes. The unfortunate accident. You understand, Captain, that research sometimes has unforeseen consequences. A containment breach, purely accidental. Accidental, Diana said, her voice flat with contempt. 2,000 people dead from your accident. Regrettable. But statistically insignificant in the larger context of scientific advancement. The weapon was designed to be highly lethal, rapidly spreading, and profitable. It has exceeded all three parameters. Kirk felt disgust rising. You're selling plague? I'm selling solutions to problems, Captain. The galaxy is full of conflicts. My clients require efficient methods of resolving them. I provide those methods. Navar's hand moved closer to the switch. Now you have two options. Leave immediately, or I trigger the self-destruct, and we all die together along with 15 years of irreplaceable research. There's a third option, Diana said quietly. You give us the cure, surrender peacefully, and face justice for your crimes. Navar laughed. Justice? From whom? The Federation, which preaches law while you break into sovereign facilities. The Klingon, who would employ me if given the chance. There is no justice in this galaxy, Princess. Only power and profit. I chose profit. Kirk's mind raced through options. They were too far away to reach her before she could activate the self-destruct. Shooting her risked her falling onto the switch. Negotiations seemed futile with someone who viewed mass death as acceptable cost of business. Diana, however, was already moving. Her lasso uncoiled with liquid grace, golden rope snapping through the air faster than Kirk could track. It wrapped around Navar's wrist, yanking her hand away from the terminal with irresistible force. The lasso of truth, Diana said, pulling Navar toward her. It compels honesty and binds the spirit. You cannot lie while in its grip. You cannot resist its commands. Now, where is the cure? Navar struggled, but her body betrayed her, fingers pointing toward a secured storage unit across the lab. There. Synthesized antibodies. Effective against all weapon variants. But you'll never. Silence. Diana's voice carried absolute authority. Kirk, retrieve the cure. I have her. Kirk ran to the storage unit, using his phaser to cut through the lock. Inside, he found rows of vials filled with luminescent blue liquid. His tricorder confirmed their purpose. Highly specialized antibodies designed to target and destroy the bioweapon bacteria. Got it. Spock, lock onto my signal and beam these directly to sickbay. Dr. McCoy needs them now. Acknowledged, Captain. Energizing. The vials shimmered and vanished. Kirk felt relief flood through him. They had succeeded. The colonists could be saved. Diana still held Navar in the lasso's grip, the Orion scientist trembling with the effort of resisting compulsion that could not be resisted. You created death for profit. How many others have suffered from your work? I don't know. Navar gasped, the lasso forcing truth. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe millions. I stopped counting. It was just data. Just numbers. Numbers, Diana repeated, her voice hollow with ancient grief. Lives reduced to statistics. Children, parents, entire communities, just numbers in your profit calculations. She pulled Navar closer. Look at me. See what 3,000 years of witnessing such atrocities has taught me. Navar looked, and whatever she saw in Diana's eyes made her go pale even beneath her green skin. I could kill you. Diana continued quietly. I have killed before, when justice demanded it. You have earned death many times over. But I am also a princess, bound by laws higher than my anger. So instead you will live. You will face Federation justice. You will spend decades in prison, remembering that the numbers had names, had lives, had value you refused to acknowledge. Kirk approached carefully. Diana, we need to go. Security will have called for reinforcements. Diana released Navar from the lasso, the scientist collapsing to the floor. She's yours, Captain. Deliver her to whatever justice your Federation provides. Kirk activated his communicator. Enterprise 3 to beam up. Include the Orion scientist in custody protocols. They materialized in the transporter room to find McCoy waiting, his face transformed from exhaustion to hope. Jim! The antibodies work. We've already administered them to critical patients. Response is immediate and dramatic. We're going to save them. We're actually going to save them. Kirk felt the weight lift from his shoulders. How many? All of them, if we move fast. Maybe lose another 100 to those already too far gone, but the rest, we can save the rest. Diana sat down heavily on the transporter pad, the adrenaline finally fading. 2,000 died before we could act. We saved 6,000. Is that victory or failure, Doctor? McCoy's expression was compassionate. Princess, in my profession, we learn to measure success by lives saved, not lives lost. You can drive yourself mad focusing on who you couldn't help. Better to honor the dead by saving the living. Wise words, Diana acknowledged. But the dead still deserve justice. They'll get it, Kirk promised. Dr. Navar will face charges for every death her weapons caused. The Syndicate facility will be dismantled. It's not enough, but it's something. Diana stood, her strength returning. Captain Kirk, you broke regulations today. You attacked a neutral facility, stole property, violated jurisdictional protocols. Your Starfleet command will not be pleased. No, Kirk agreed. They won't. But 6,000 people are alive because we acted. I'll answer for my choices. I always do. Diana's smile was genuine, warm. You're learning, Captain. Sometimes the right choice is the illegal one. Sometimes justice requires breaking laws written by those who've never witnessed suffering. She paused. I'm proud to serve with you. Kirk felt unexpected emotion tighten his throat. The honor is mine, Princess. Now let's get back to Epsilon Canaris and finish what we started. Epsilon Canaris 3 was healing. 3 weeks after the Enterprise delivered the cure, the colony's death toll had stabilized at 2,147 souls, a devastating loss, but not the extinction-level catastrophe that had seemed inevitable. The survivors worked to rebuild, their faces carrying the weight of grief but also the fragile hope of continuation. Diana stood in the colony's memorial garden, surrounded by markers bearing names of the dead. Governor Marco had invited her to the dedication ceremony, and she'd accepted, compelled by duty and something deeper, the need to bear witness to consequences. They wanted me to make a speech, Marco said quietly, joining Diana among the stones. Talk about sacrifice and resilience and finding meaning in tragedy. But what meaning is there in a 6-year-old dying from a manufactured plague? None, Diana answered honestly. Some deaths have no meaning. They're simply cruel. The meaning comes from what the living choose to do afterward. And what should we do, Princess? Rebuild? Pretend this didn't happen? Trust that the Federation will prevent the next attack? Diana turned to face her. You do what humans have always done, you endure. You remember. You demand better from those who claim to protect you. And you never, ever stop fighting for a galaxy where children don't die from weapons built for profit. Marco's eyes were wet. That sounds exhausting. It is. But the alternative is accepting that some lives matter less than others. That prosperity justifies atrocity. That's how empires fall, Governor, not from external enemies but from internal rot, from choosing comfort over justice. Diana gestured to the memorial stones. These people didn't choose their fate. They trusted that someone would protect them. That trust was betrayed. Honor them by ensuring their deaths change something. How? I'm just a colony governor. What power do I have? More than you think. Testify before the Federation Council. Demand accountability from Starfleet Medical for inadequate quarantine protocols. Make Dr. Navar's trial public so the galaxy sees the cost of weaponized disease. Turn your tragedy into a catalyst for reform. Marcos studied Diana with new appreciation. You've done this before. Turned grief into action. Many times. Too many. Diana's voice carried 3,000 years of experience. I've buried civilizations, Governor. I've watched empires crumble and new ones rise from the ashes. The only constant is that change comes from those brave enough to demand it, even when they're exhausted, even when it seems impossible. Kirk approached from the landing site, his gold uniform bright against the garden's somber greens. Princess, the Enterprise is ready to depart. Unless you'd prefer to stay longer? No, Captain. My presence here is a reminder of what was lost, not what was saved. These people need to heal without an immortal warrior watching over them. They beamed up together, materializing on the Enterprise bridge where Spock waited with characteristic patience and an unusually intense expression. Captain, we have received communication from Starfleet Command. Admiral Carmack wishes to speak with you immediately regarding the Epsilon Canaris incident. Kirk's jaw tightened. Put him through. Main view screen. The Admiral's weathered face filled the screen, his expression carved from granite. Captain Kirk. Your report makes for fascinating reading. Unauthorized assault on a neutral facility, theft of private property, violation of interstellar law, all without proper authorization. Admiral, the facility was producing illegal bioweapons in violation of laws we enforce through proper diplomatic channels, not vigilante raids. Carmack's voice was steel. You've created an interstellar incident. The Orion Syndicate is demanding your arrest. The Rigel system government is threatening to lodge formal complaints. And you've given every two-bit smuggler in the sector justification to claim Federation harassment. Diana stepped forward. Admiral, Captain Kirk saved 6,000 lives. The alternative was watching them die while debating jurisdiction. And you are? Carmack's eyes narrowed. Princess Diana of Themyscira. I accompanied Captain Kirk on the mission. The dimensional refugee. Yes, I've read the reports. Apparently, you've been quite busy, defeating Klingon commanders, negotiating with Romulans, now raiding bioweapon facilities. Tell me, Princess, what gives you the authority to involve yourself in Federation affairs? Kirk interrupted. Admiral, with respect, Princess Diana acted under my command. Any responsibility is mine alone. Oh, I'm well aware, Captain. Which is why you're hereby ordered to return to Earth immediately for formal inquiry. Your actions will be reviewed by a board of senior officers. Depending on their findings, you may face court-martial. The bridge went silent. Diana felt fury rising. This was how the Federation treated those who acted to save lives. With threats and bureaucratic punishment? Admiral, she said, her voice carefully controlled. Captain Kirk followed his conscience when regulations failed. He saw suffering and ended it. Punishing him sends a message that Federation officers should prioritize procedure over people. It sends a message that we are a society of laws, not individual whims. Carmack countered. However powerful our ships, however noble our intentions, we cannot function if every captain decides which rules to follow. That path leads to chaos. Or justice. Diana shot back. Your prime directive forbids interference. But you have no directive demanding action when your own people suffer. That asymmetry reveals where your priorities truly lie. Carmack's expression flickered, surprise, perhaps, or grudging respect. Princess, you raise valid points. But the Federation has survived for over a century because we balance idealism with pragmatism, principles with procedure. What Captain Kirk did was brave, possibly even necessary. It was also illegal. We cannot ignore that simply because the outcome was positive. Kirk found his voice. Admiral, I accept full responsibility. I'll submit to inquiry. But I won't apologize for saving lives. No one's asking you to apologize, Captain. We're asking you to face consequences. There's a difference. Carmack's expression softened fractionally. For what it's worth, Jim, off the record, I'd have done the same thing. But on the record, as an admiral responsible for maintaining interstellar law, I have no choice but to convene this inquiry. Do you understand? I do, sir. Good. Set course for Earth, maximum warp. Carmack out. The screen went dark. Kirk stood motionless for a moment, processing the reality of potential court-martial, career destruction, disgrace. Everything he'd worked for, potentially gone because he'd chosen lives over law. Diana's hand touched his shoulder. Captain, I'll testify on your behalf. I'll explain exactly what happened, why your actions were justified. Diana. Kirk turned to face her, his expression calm despite the turmoil she knew he must feel. This is the system I serve. If I believe in the Federation's principles, I have to believe in its accountability mechanisms too. Even when they're pointed at me. That's insane. They're punishing you for being a hero. No, they're ensuring that individual heroism doesn't override collective governance. There's a difference. Kirk moved to his command chair, settling into it with the weight of decision. Mr. Sulu, set course for Earth. Warp Factor 6. Aye, Captain. As the Enterprise turned toward Federation space, Diana felt something shift in her understanding. Kirk wasn't weak for accepting judgment. He was strong enough to submit to authority even when that authority might destroy him. He believed in the system enough to let it test him. That was a different kind of courage than she was accustomed to. Spock approached quietly. Captain, the inquiry will focus heavily on your decision-making process. I have prepared detailed logs supporting your actions. Belay that, Spock. I want the logs to show exactly what happened, without editorial commentary. Let the board decide if they end your career? Kirk's smile was slight but genuine. Then I'll have acted according to my conscience and accepted the consequences. That's all any of us can do, Princess. Make our choices and face what comes after. You're a better man than most I've known, James Kirk. Or a more naive one. We'll find out soon enough. The journey to Earth took 9 days. 9 days of preparation, of reviewing logs and writing reports, of watching Kirk maintain perfect professionalism while facing potential professional execution. Diana spent the time observing, learning, understanding this strange culture that punished its heroes for being heroic. But she also saw something else, the crew's loyalty. Every officer who'd served with Kirk volunteered to testify. McCoy prepared medical evidence of the plague's severity. Scotty documented the technical impossibility of extracting the cure through diplomatic channels. Uhura compiled communication logs showing the colony's desperation. They weren't defending Kirk because regulations required it. They were defending him because they believed in him. That, Diana realized, was the Federation's true strength, not its ships or technology, but the bonds between individuals united by shared purpose. Kirk inspired that loyalty not through power but through principle. Earth appeared on the view screen, blue and beautiful and utterly indifferent to one captain's fate. Kirk stood, straightening his uniform with practiced precision. Well, he said quietly, let's see what justice looks like today. Diana stood beside him. Whatever happens, Captain, know that you were right. The lives you saved matter more than any regulation. Maybe. But that's not for me to judge. Kirk glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Thank you, Diana. For everything. You've challenged me, protected my crew, and shown me perspectives I desperately needed. Whatever the board decides, I'm grateful you appeared in our universe. The gratitude is mutual, Captain. You've shown me that strength comes in many forms, including the strength to submit to judgment. They stood together, warrior and captain, watching Earth grow larger, awaiting the verdict that would determine whether courage or caution would define the Federation's future. The Federation Council chambers on Earth were austere by design, no ornamentation to distract from the weight of judgment, no comfort to soften the consequences of accountability. Captain James T. Kirk stood before 5 admirals, his record displayed on screens that chronicled both his achievements and his violations. Beside him, Diana of Themyscira stood as witness, her presence a reminder that this inquiry examined more than one captain's choices. It tested the Federation's very soul. Admiral Carmack led the proceedings with clinical precision. Evidence was presented: the Epsilon Canaris plague, the Syndicate facility raid, the lives saved and laws broken. Testimony came from McCoy, Spock, Governor Marco, even Dr. Navar from her detention cell. The facts were incontrovertible. Kirk had acted outside authority to prevent catastrophe. The question was whether that made him a hero or a threat. Diana watched the admirals' faces as they deliberated, reading 3,000 years of political theater in their expressions. They understood Kirk had done the right thing. But they also understood that endorsing his actions would undermine the very structure that gave the Federation legitimacy. It was the eternal dilemma of governance: how to honor principle without destroying order. The verdict came after 4 hours of closed deliberation. "Captain Kirk," Admiral Carmack began, his voice carrying throughout the chamber, "this board finds that your actions at Epsilon Canaris 3, while undertaken with noble intent, constituted serious violations of Starfleet regulations and interstellar law. You conducted an unauthorized military operation against a neutral facility, seized property without warrant, and created diplomatic complications that will take months to resolve." Diana's hands clenched. This was injustice masquerading as order. "However," Carmack continued, "the board also recognizes that extraordinary circumstances occasionally demand extraordinary responses. Your intervention saved approximately 6,000 lives. Your judgment, while legally questionable, was morally sound. Therefore, this board issues the following ruling: you are hereby reprimanded for violation of protocol. This reprimand will remain on your permanent record. Additionally, you will submit to mandatory review of Starfleet regulations regarding emergency intervention scenarios." Carmack paused, his expression softening fractionally. "That said, you retain your command of the Enterprise. Your record of service speaks to your character. One incident of questionable judgment, even when lives were saved, does not erase years of exemplary leadership. You are dismissed, Captain. Try to stay out of trouble." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Kirk stood motionless, processing relief and frustration in equal measure. A reprimand, not a commendation. Accountability, not celebration. It was perfectly, frustratingly Federation. Outside the chambers, Diana confronted him. "A reprimand? They reprimanded you for saving 6,000 people?" "Yes," Kirk said simply. "That's insane. That's accountability." "I broke the rules, Diana." Good reasons don't erase that fact. The reprimand acknowledges both the necessity and the violation. It's balanced. It's political cowardice. Kirk smiled wearily. Maybe. But it's also how civilizations survive, by refusing to let ends justify means completely. By insisting that even heroism has limits, that even necessary actions carry consequences. He looked at her directly. "You showed me that action matters more than procedure. The Federation just showed me that procedure matters too. Neither of us was entirely right." Diana absorbed this, recognizing wisdom in the frustration. "So what now, Captain? Now? We return to the Enterprise. Continue our mission? Explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and new civilizations." Kirk's smile widened. "And occasionally break rules when lives demand it, then face the consequences afterward. A compromise. The best kind. The kind where everyone is slightly unsatisfied but progress continues." Kirk gestured toward the spaceport where the Enterprise waited. "Come on, Princess. Let's go home." Home. The word resonated strangely for Diana. The Enterprise wasn't Themyscira. This universe wasn't hers. These people were strangers from a reality she'd never known. And yet, she had found something here. Not replacement for what she'd lost, but something new. A crew that challenged her assumptions, a captain who balanced idealism with pragmatism, a civilization struggling to reconcile principle with reality. It wasn't perfect. But perfection was an illusion. Progress was real. Aboard the Enterprise, the crew welcomed Kirk back with carefully professional enthusiasm that barely masked their relief. Spock raised an eyebrow, and what Diana had learned was the Vulcan equivalent of celebration. McCoy grumbled about bureaucratic nonsense while clearly delighted his captain remained. Even Scotty emerged from engineering to offer congratulations disguised as complaints about paperwork. Diana watched it all, feeling something unfamiliar, belonging. Kirk found her later in the observation lounge, staring at the stars as they prepared to depart Earth orbit. "Thinking about home?" he asked. "Thinking about what home means," Diana corrected. "I may never return to my universe, Captain. The rift that brought me here sealed completely. I'm stranded in a reality where magic is science, where gods are myths, where everything I knew exists only in memory. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm beginning to understand that perhaps I was meant to be here. Not by fate or divine will, but by simple probability, infinite universes, infinite possibilities, and I landed in one where I was needed." She turned to face him. "Your Federation is flawed. Your Prime Directive permits suffering. Your regulations prioritize order over justice. But you're also trying. Genuinely, imperfectly trying to build something better. That's rare, Captain. That's precious." Kirk settled into the chair beside her. "Does this mean you're staying? Officially? If you'll have me. I could continue operating independently, but I've learned that even immortal warriors benefit from crew, from community, from people who challenge them to be better. The Federation will want you vetted, assessed, probably assigned some official status. I am Princess Diana of Themyscira, daughter of Hippolyta, champion of the Amazons. I bow to no bureaucracy. But I will serve alongside those who earn my respect." She smiled. "You've earned it, Captain Kirk. You and your crew. So yes, I'll stay. I'll be your warrior, your conscience, your reminder that sometimes the right choice is the difficult one. And I'll be your anchor," Kirk promised. "Your reminder that even necessary actions carry costs, that even righteous fury needs temperance. Deal? Deal." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars stream past as the Enterprise accelerated to warp. Diana felt the ship's engines hum through the deck, felt the presence of 430 souls going about their duties, felt the vast universe waiting to be explored. 3,000 years of life, and she was beginning something genuinely new. Somewhere in this strange universe, the Klingons still tested warriors in combat. The Romulans still wove webs of manipulation. The Borg still consumed civilizations. Injustice still flourished in shadows while good people debated proper responses. The galaxy remained dangerous, complicated, morally ambiguous. But Diana was no longer alone. She had found allies who balanced her passion with logic, her certainty with doubt, her strength with wisdom. Together, they would face whatever came, not perfectly, but purposefully. The Enterprise turned toward unknown space, carrying an immortal Amazon into adventures she couldn't predict. Diana smiled, feeling something she hadn't experienced in centuries. Genuine anticipation for an uncertain future. Behind her, the past receded. Ahead, possibilities multiplied. And in this moment, suspended between what was and what might be, Diana of Themyscira finally found peace. Not in her native universe. Not among her Amazon sisters. Not in familiar battles against familiar foes. But here, aboard a starship crewed by dreamers and explorers, led by a captain who understood that the hardest choices defined character more than the easy ones ever could. She was home. Live long and prosper. Hit that subscribe button for more interesting stories. Thank you.